Croeso cynnes i'r cyntaf o gyfres Sgyrsiau GwyrddNi. Mae GwyrddNi i'r rhai ohonoch chi sydd ddim yn gyfarwydd yn fudiad sy'n gweithio mewn 5 cymuned yng Ngwynedd ar hyn o bryd, dod â pobl o bob oedran at ei gilydd i ddysgu, i rannu, i gynllunio a gweithredu mewn ymateb i'r argyfwng hinsawdd. Da ni hanner ffordd trwy broses o gynulliadau cymunedol ar y funud mewn 5 ardal, rhywbeth tebyg i gynulliad dinasyddion neu People's Jury ydy cynulliad cymunedol, i ffeindio llais cyfunol a syniadau clir o'r ffordd ymlaen i'n cymunedau ni ar lawr gwlad. Mae wedi bod yn wych dod i nabod yr aelodau yn bob ardal, dod i nabod y cyfoeth o ymdrechion anhygoel sy'n digwydd yn bob man yn barod, a hefyd gwrando a dysgu am be mae pobl eisiau bod mwy amdano fo, be mae pobl eisiau wneud yn ychwanegol. Yn bob un o'r ardaloedd mae yna themau cyffredin wedi bod yn codi. Felly, yn ogystal â medru cynnig cyfle i aelodau cynulliad dod at ei gilydd, oedden ni eisiau agor e fyny i fwy o bobl, a dyna sut da ni wedi cyrraedd at gynnal y gyfres yma. Felly, Dyfu Bwyd heno, diwedd mis Tachwedd yn trafod ynni cymunedol, a i fewn i'r flwyddyn newydd, wedyn fydden ni'n edrych ar trafnidiaeth gynaliadwy. A bosib mwy ddilyn ar ôl hynna hefyd, ond 2 sgwrs i ddechrau ni ffwrdd. Ac arbrawf, dipyn o arbrawf di hwn, arbrawf hefo defnyddio'r webinar, arbrawf hefo cael gynulleidfa i anfon cwestiynau i fewn trwy'r cwestiwn ag ateb. Felly, da ni'n gwerthfawrogi os ydych chi'n gallu bod yn amlieddgar, os ydych chydig bach yn od, a fydda ni'n croesawu unrhyw adborth ar ei ôl o ran sydd brofiad oedd o. Felly, bu fi fwydro lot mwy na i groesawu ein panelwyr ni heno. Well, welcome to our panelists tonight. Mae'n broses syml iawn. Mae gennym ni bobl gwych efo ni fan hyn sy'n gwneud gwaith arbennig mewn lot o wahanol lefydd. Da ni'n mynd i cael sgwrs bach. Dwi'n mynd i ofyn cwestiynau. Maen nhw'n mynd i ateb nhw. A mae croeso i chi ofyn cwestiynau hefyd tra da ni wrthi, a na ni basio rhain ymlaen. A gobeithio fydd gennych chi ddarlun cliriach a fyddwch chi'n llawn ysbrydoliaeth ar ei ddiwedd o ran beth sy'n digwydd yn barod, lle fedrwch chi ymuno, lle fedrwch chi gael eich dwylo'n fudur, gobeithio. Felly, rhan ni fwrw ymlaen. Croeso cynnes i Matt o fferm Hen Bant, Angharad, sy'n ymuno hefo ni o Bryn Refel. Mike, dwi'n mynd hollol siŵr lle yn y byd yma, Mike ar y funud. Lucinda hefyd. A Franklin hefo ni rhwng Bethel a Llanrug yn fferm Tyddyn Teg. Felly, da ni am ddechrau heno, yn dod o gwmpas pawb, trio cael chydig o flas o pryd wnaeth pawb yma ddechrau tyfu. Da chi'n cofio eich cynheuadd cyntaf, da chi'n cofio'r peth cyntaf chi godi allan o'r ddaear. Na i fynd at Angharad gyntaf.
O'n i'n meddwl am hyn jyst gynt. Mae'n cwestiwn, un o'r cwestiynau anodd fi mewn ffordd, ond dwi yn cofio bod yn blentyn bach iawn cyn ysgol yn sgwatio lawr a bwyta brocoli yn yr ardd. A oedd gyd i dechrau o fan'na, rili. So, pan nes i adael ysgol yn mynd i deithio, nes i ffeindio fy hun yn isio gwirfoddoli ar gwahanol ffermydd a gweld sut oedd nhw'n gweithio'n wahanol. Ffermydd parameithu, a ffermydd organic, ffermydd biodynamic, a jyst cael gwahanol profiadau. Rhai lleol fel Moelyci ac Brithdir Mawr yn De Cymru. A hefyd, nes i ffeindio fy hun in the deep end a bit yn De Affrica, yn undio fyny yn gyfrifol am tyfu bwyd i teulu bach am gyfnod. So, yeah, lot o dyfys profiadau bach. Cyn dod nôl i Gymru ac isio sefydlu rhywbeth fama.
Franklin, what are your earliest memories of growing or harvesting?
I grew up on a farm, but it was a livestock farm, but we had a vegetable garden. So I think my earliest memories of harvesting is just wandering around grazing on peas and beans and everything else that somebody else had grown. But I probably didn't really start growing myself until I was an adult. But I also worked for my in-laws' farm in Zambia, where we were growing as well as cereals. We were growing tomatoes and cauliflowers and paprika and crops like that. So I worked with them. But it's only really when we came to Tyfu Teg that growing really became a full part of my life. So that was that 7 years ago. But I'd been involved with had a vegetable shop in London selling organic vegetables, and so that was in my 20s, and it has been something of a life ambition, and I kept working towards the idea of being able to have somewhere somewhere like Tyfu Teg, where we will be able to grow for a veg scheme. It's been a long ambition.
The importance of dreaming. Keep on dreaming. Big. Diolch. Thank you so much. Mike?
Yeah. Just yn meddwl hefyd. So, oedd rhieni fi yn tyfu hefyd pan o'n i'n bach. So wedyn, dwi'n meddwl, mae pen fi yn blino siarad Cymraeg, so dwi'n mynd i been speaking Welsh all day, so I get exhausted. Yeah, I probably must have harvested various stuff when I was little, but I never really got inspired by it until kind of around COVID, really. I for some reason, ended up doing a traineeship at Tyfu Teg, and Franklin was one of my mentors. Not sure how it really happened. It was like at a loose end, and just, yeah, clicked that this is vitally important. So then I was obsessed with growing, have been for the best part of 3 years, really. And yeah, I think it must have been inspired by doing things when I was little, and then I just thought I was too cool for it until now, and I think I'm not cool enough.
Cooler still. Who knows?
Yeah.
Matt?
Yeah, I don't know. I was obsessed by being a farmer when I was tiny. I grew up in a little terrace house, and so being a farmer wasn't really an option, but somehow I came across the work of John Seymour, and my parents just weren't into growing things. They like people, they were into people. And but no, I came across John Seymour, and it became like this kind of like textbook that guided my entire childhood. And so I spent ages like trying to kind of build a plow and harnessing my sister to that and getting her to try and turn over the garden. And you know, I was obsessed by growing all sorts of different things. And then before we moved to Henbant, we had like a year practice of trying to grow all our own food for us. It's just magical, isn't it? And then we came to Henbant, and we just wanted to kind of grow babies and cabbages at first and just kind of feed us. And then we were like, oh, look, we really need to share this. And actually, well, that was my first experience of growing. So I've always kind of grown, but increasingly more seriously. Yeah.
Would you like to keep us going on that track of how you came to Henbant, where it is, what you're doing there?
Yeah, sure. So we've been here for 10 years. No one had been at Henbant for maybe 50 years before us. It was quarried. The land here was quarried, and so it's just kind of boarded over. and essentially forgotten beyond the people who lived on its edges. And we started off, like I said, we kind of just came to grow babies and cabbages, and then we started doing, don't know, probably 5, 6 years ago, we started doing veg boxes for neighbours, and we started growing kind of like, you know, 10, 15 boxes of veg for people who couldn't complain, because we kind of just gave it to them and said, eat our vegetables, quite forcibly. And then, yeah, and then I'd say, well, at the start of COVID, to be honest, we always meant to be a farm, and we always meant to grow a lot of vegetables. But at the start of COVID, we didn't have any tourism, and I went, oh gosh, we need to make an income. And so we started growing veg with much more umph, I guess, really. Yeah, and so now we're doing, well, what do we do? So 3 years ago, we did like 30 veg boxes. Last year we did 50 maybe, and then this year we're kind of doing 70, 80. And I think actually I've kind of built a garden around a size that I can only fit so many cabbages in one bed, and our bed size is very determined, which means I don't think we can really go much above like 90, 100, and I think that'll be us out of the game, well, in terms of expanding. Yeah, but we're a kind of community centered farm, and we're holistically managed, so we've got a context that we work around, and so we're kind of on a mission really to prove that you can buy a small farm on a mortgage. We just got this weird guy to lend us loads of money, and we got told not to ask any questions or open our mouths, and someone just found us some money to buy this farm, which we've got to pay back, but we're one cabbage at a time. We're slowly getting there. And yeah, so we're on a mission to prove that you can buy a small farm, that you can make it pay its way through producing real food, that you can build soil, build biodiversity, build social capital, and enjoy it. And I kind of figure if we can do that, then probably most people could. And if most people can, then actually you can make the world a whole big better place. And that's our kind of mission and purpose, really. And we're doing quite well on like local engagement. We're doing all sorts of other projects. We're building a big community orchard, and I don't know, we're just a busy place. And we do an internship, so we train people. We've probably got about 6 to 10 people that we take on for like a long-term internship each year. And yeah, and we run a big range of courses in regenerative farming. I guess that's the quick as.
Diolch yn fawr. Dwi'n gobeithio bod pawb sydd hefo ni heno wedi derbyn y pecyn gwybodaeth. Mae wedi dod ar e-bost pnawn 'ma gobeithio i pawb sy'n cymryd rhan. Mae yna biogs o bawb sy'n siarad heno yn fan'na, a links i gwefannau nhw, a lot mwy o links ar y diwedd hefyd i rei o'r mudiadau trosolwg, os liciwch chi, neu mudiadau cenedlaethol sydd yn plethu trwy waith lot o siaradwyr, mudiadau parameithu, Land Workers Alliance, Sustainable Food Trust, y mathau yna o fudiadau. Felly ie, os ydych chi heb gael cyfle i ddarllen y pecyn eto, plis gnewch. Lot mwy o links i chi gael dysgu mwy am y gwaith gwych sy'n mynd ymlaen efo yma a tu hwnt. A dwi'n siŵr bod fi ddim wedi cynnwys pawb, bob un tyfwr yn y rhestr yna. Mae yna gyfle i bobl gysylltu hefo fi, os dyn nhw'n gwybod am fwy, i ni gael rili trio tyfu'r darlun yma o yr holl dyfu a cynhyrchu bwyd gwych sy'n digwydd yn Gogledd Orllewin Cymru. Dwi'n synnu bob dydd gymaint sy'n yna, a dwi'n siŵr bod yn tyfu bob dydd hefyd. Felly, pwy gan ni nesaf? Mike, os ti'n licio sôn am gwaith dydd i ddydd? Lle wyt ti'n tyfu rwan, efo pwy wyt ti'n tyfu?
Yeah, sure. So I started off just kind of getting in touch with the schools in Bethesda and offering to do like a couple of workshops here and there that was like an hour or two a day. And then that was really well received. And so over time, over the last couple of years, it's built up to now doing full days. So today I was with a school, Dyfu Bwyd Cymunedol, the secondary school in Bethesda, and working with some year 10s, and then year 11s after school in an after school club for Duke of Edinburgh, because they have to do kind of, yes, whether it's volunteering or physical stuff. So kind of weaving into some of the accredited stuff that they do there. Not like ranging from like as little as 2 up to maybe like 10, 15 kids in a session, which is varying degrees of chaos, especially when, so in Ysgol Llechyd and Abercaseg and Pen y Bryn as well, the primary schools, adapting to working, gardening sessions with like a bunch of 4-year-olds or like 4 or 5-year-olds is totally out of my comfort zone. So it's a really fascinating process to see how effective little activities can direct different age groups, and you can set some kids to weeding and they'll just be content doing it for ages, so much so that they'll pull out all your vegetables as well. They're just insatiable for the digging. Dig ya, oh, they love it. And at this moment of like harvesting and stuff, it's particularly satisfying. So they've been digging up potatoes and lots of really satisfying experiences. And it's funny that your initial question of when was your first experience of harvesting or growing vegetables, and it's like making sure that every child in school has an experience of growing it, because that stacks the odds that they'll at least appreciate that in future years. So that was a big part of the mentality behind it, was even if it's just children walking past the veg patch at the school and like, oh, that's where vegetables come from. It's a very subliminal thing for some kids. And then recently it's been really interesting having more and more kids just coming in like lunch times or break times and asking to get involved, because even though, I mean, teenagers' enthusiasm for getting dirty is variable, but they're kind of self-selecting the ones that are interested and come over, and we'll be trying all the different vegetables. And I had this occurrence the other day that probably be a bit careful about, like encouraging children to try kale just off the plant, because it's going to put them off for life. So the big challenge now I'm coming to is how to get that produce into delicious meals, because like growing it's a kind of in a way is the easy part. And a few times I've had a big box of veg, and it's some of the kids might take some of the ones that they're familiar with, but they don't really know what to do with other things. So integrating that more into the school kitchens, or like teachers have been taking it away, and that's been great. So it is kind of embedding vegetables and fruit and veg into the culture of the school.
Gret.
Yeah.
Yna ni ddod yn ôl I hwnna nes ymlaen o ran agwedda ag ymddygiad. Mae'n dod I fyny reit aml yn y gwaith ni o ran, da ni'n gweld y newid sydd angen digwydd, a mae'n eitha clir i'r rhai sydd yn cael hi, the ones that get it. Ond mae yna ofyn mawr newid ymddygiad o ran diet yn arbennig, bod mae ffordd mae pobl yn byta yn mynd yn ôl cenedlaethau weithiau. Lle bod yn eitha clir I lot o bobl bod byta llysiau, byta bwyd lleol yn syniad da o ran iechyd, o ran yr argyfwng hinsawdd, lleihau allyriadau carbon. Mae yna lot fawr o gama mwyn cael cymuned a cael pobl hefo ni. So dda clywed beth sydd gan y gynulleidfa I feddwl am hynna. Unrhyw syniadau am hynna, rhowch nhw yn y chat, neu fedrwch chi anfon cwestiwn. Mae yna link, mae yna tab ar draws y gwylod sy'n deud Q&A. Jyst os gennych chi gwestiynau penodol I ofyn I unrhyw un, rhowch nhw I fewn trwy fanna. Mae yna un cwestiwn. Na I ddod yn ôl I hwnna yn y munud, dwi'n meddwl. Cwestiwn yn y chat. Diolch Mike. Ai ymlaen at Franklin. Franklin, would you like to tell us a little more about? You're muted at the moment. If you take yourself off mute, Franklin.
sorry. There we go. I'm unmuted.
There you go. Tell us all about what and how you're growing at Tyfu Teg.
So we're our main the main activity that we're involved in is growing vegetables.
Can you hold it a little closer? We can't hear terribly well. If you can hold it a little closer to yourself.
Any better?
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know why it should be a problem. No, I don't know. Is that okay now?
I think it should be okay. Yeah.
I'll talk very loudly. How's that?
Fantastic.
Okay, so yeah, to just tell people a little bit about Tyfu Teg, it's a 30-acre farm, but we actually are only actively growing on about 5 acres, but including we have 5 polytunnels, and we're producing vegetables and tomatoes and the sort of summer fruits in the tunnels. We have at the moment we're around about 170 people on our veg schemes, which is a sort of box scheme, but the way we do it is you come along and collect the vegetables that are available for that week within the scheme that you've subscribed. We're supplying some shops and caterers as well. So and we have people who come in and just drop into our farm shop. So that's the main core of the business, and we operate in something of an unusual way in that we're a workers' cooperative, and we found that a very exciting way of working together, because it makes so that everybody who's involved in growing is involved in the decision making about their own work and sharing in the direction of the whole farm. So it's everyone has a high degree of agency within their own work, and it allows us to have people coming and joining the farm, being here for some years, and then if they want to leave, but the farm carries on. So that's the core of what we do. Recently, I've taken up baking bread, so I do less, not so much involved in growing anymore. So.
Very tasty bread it is too.
Oh,
So neb 'di cael cyfle i fynd draw i Tyfu Teg a blasu'r surdoes, mae o'n arbennig. Diolch, Franklin. Dwi'n ymwybodol, da ni ddim wedi sgwrsio fel Lucinda eto. Mae hynna ar bwrpas. Da ni di trafod yn barod bod ni'n di sôn am y tyfu bwyd sydd mae'n codi fyny ar pryd gyntaf, wedyn a ni sôn chydig am sut mae'n cael ei ddosbarthu gwmpas yr ardal. Felly dwi'n gaddo dwi ddim yn anwybyddu Lucinda yn y gongol. Da ni'n dallt yn gilydd. Angharad, gen ti dipyn o wahanol hetia ymlaen. Un ar y funud, ond sawl het wrthrychol. Tisio sôn
mae 'na kind of logic i'r stori, ond pan dos i nôl i Gymru nes i symud yma i Bryn Ryfel, ac o'n i'n byw mewn tŷ teras bach efo gardd bach, ond o'n i'n really ffodus i gael plot yn yr allotment yn y pentre. I'll carry on in English, if that's all right, just for now. So I got this plot right at the start of lockdown, and I spent months immersed in kind of relearning to grow things, because it's not the same here as in the South African climate. And then when schools started again, lockdown did a lot to change our mentality anyway, I think, but a few of us parents got together and decided to start gardening at the school ourselves. And it was amazing, seeing things growing and how much the kids were getting out of it. A lot of what Mikey's saying is resonating. In fact, I contacted Mikey for advice down the line. But what ended up happening was it outgrew the school, and the head was keen to make links with the community. So we contacted the Housing Association and asked if we could grow stuff on the green. And they said yes. But we had a few hoops to jump through to get insurance, and for that we needed a constitution, and we needed to map what we were doing. But once we got all that done, we could do stuff. And then we got permission to use the park from the council as well. And it's grown to working with the village hall to both to use their grounds and to do much more through applying jointly for grants to improve things for everyone in the village. So there's something like Mikey was saying about the kids' experience, and it's igniting a whole new thing and turning them on. It's similar when we're doing work in the community. Just the simple act of planting a few flowers in a verge can just change people's perception of their environment and how they interact with it and what's possible. So yeah, I'm seeing more and more villages around now. There's Bryn Refal and Rywlas planting things, and now I see Bethel and Daniel are keen to get stuff going as well. So I'm in the process of setting up a constitution for a big project to cover the parish so that we can all garden together and network and exchange things. And yeah, it just removes the barriers for all the individual villages to start doing it themselves. That's why I can't list what we've grown in all the different places.
Mae'n iawn, siwr. Diolch yn fawr. Mae rhywbeth am rhandiroedd. Oedden ni wedi gobeithio cael ambell siaradwr arall. Oedd yn gallu sôn am randiroedd. Mae hwnna'n codi bob un o'r ardaloedd GwyrddNi. Mae pobl efo gerddi bach, ond mae yna rhywbeth am randir, dwi'n meddwl, sy'n gymaint mwy na tyfu bwyd. Mae'n creu cymuned, mae'n ecosystem bach i hyn, microcosm. A fel ti di sôn, mae hwnna wedi bod yn sbardun i chdi. Fedri mynd ymlaen i gymaint mwy o bethau. Sut mae'r randiroedd yn gweithio am Bryn Refal?
Wel, mi oedd yna mond 4 neu 5 rhandirwyr ar dechrau cyfnod clo, ond wedyn mae yna tua 10 gwan, a mae'r dim ond lle bach ydi o, so mae'n llawn ar hyn o bryd. A mae wedi bod yn wych y profiad o dysgu o'n gilydd, a just cael cyfarfodydd bach, cael barbecue bach bob hyn a hyn efo'n gilydd, a mewn ffordd hynna ddaru sbarduno ffurfio grŵp cymunedol i Bryn Refal i dechrau plannu ar y verges a sôn am rheoli'r coed tir efallai a gwneud mwy efo'n gilydd fel pentre. So mae'n definitely fel, mae yna fel sens o tir cyffredin sy'n dod o pobl at ei gilydd bod ni gyd efo'n rhannau bach. A obviously mae yna galw am mwy o rhandiroedd. A trwy'r prosiect plwyf dwi wedi wneud arolwg, a mae yna galw am rhandiroedd mewn sawl pentre yn yr ardal. So swn i'n really hoffi explorio sut allwn ni gweithio efo'r cyngor, neu efallai efo ffermwyr i rentio ceia i weld beth sy'n bosib.
Gwych. Diolch yn fawr. Yn y pecyn gwybodaeth gath i anfon atoch chi pnawn yma, mae yna link yn fyna i gyhoeddiad gan y Senedd. Maen nhw wedi rannu ynglyn â mynediad at asedau cymunedol. Dwi'n meddwl bod pethau ar y funud chydig anoddach yng Nghymru nag ydy mewn yn Lloegr neu yn yr Alban o ran dod o hyd i dir. Sut mae, os di criw o bobl sydd ddim hefo cyfalaf, sydd ddim hefo yr arian i fynd allan a prynu pethau, sut maen nhw'n mynd ati, sut maen nhw'n dod o hyd i llefydd. Dwi'n credu yn Bryn Refal, hen ysgol oedd y caban, gath ei drosglwyddo i gorff cydweithredol, a'r tir o gwmpas wedyn di dod i greu elw i'r gymuned. Lleia, os di rhywun efo diddordeb i fynd trwy'r pecyn, dod o hyd i'r adroddiad, rhestr o'r gymhellion ydyn nhw ar hyn o bryd gan Bwyllgor yn y Senedd o ran sut i wneud hi'n haws i gymunedau fedru meddiannu asedau cymunedol neu gael trosglwyddo asedau cymunedol i berchnogaeth neu ofalaeth oddi wrth gyrff cyhoeddus. Felly, unrhyw un sydd yn barod i fynd amdani, sydd yn ysu gael creu gofodau yn eu cymunedau, cymwch olwg ar hwnna a dilyn y datblygiadau o ran be mae'r Llywodraeth yn mynd i gynnig fel cefnogaeth a partneriaid eraill hefyd fel cwmpas oedd yn arfer bod the Wales Cooperative Centre, lle mae yna lot fawr iawn o gefnogaeth allan yna i bobl sy'n awyddus i feddiannu, gofodau cyhoeddus ac gobeithio i ddechrau tyfu ynddyn nhw. Iawn, diolch yng Ngharad. Trydan ni sôn am berchnogaeth, mae Franklin di cyffwrdd ar y model yn tyfu'n teg o ran bod o'n ofod gwaith cydweithredol. Matt, would you like to mention something about the community supported agriculture, how that works?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I mean, so we call ourselves CSA, but actually, so there's different levels of CSA, isn't there? So we've got we've got 80 people subscribed to the box, of which they get a veg box every week. But there's a kind of side of CSA which is very much where the base concept is that I go, look, for me to grow 80 shares of vegetables in a year, it's going to cost me whatever it's going to cost me, £25,000. And therefore, I'm going to share that amongst all of you, and you're going to pay me that back. But it doesn't quite. That's been quite a hard thing to take up. And what I would say is actually over the time we've done the veg box, we've kind of slowly got closer to that model, really. So at the moment, previously when people just went on holiday, that was just it. We never kind of pushed it all. And now actually we've realized that people are happy to donate boxes to others, say, if they go away. And it's just a kind of a slow migration really into that community supported agriculture scheme, technically. And then there's other elements of the community at Hemban. So we've got a community orchard. So on Wednesdays, we've got a whole team of people who come in and get involved in that respect. And we have at some point done a kind of Fridays, like purposeful, what do we call it? Anyway, basically people come in with their children but they really have to garden, and they bring in their kids, and the kind of says parents and children come in and do that, and that's been quite good. And then on Mondays we've got a lovely collection of beautiful, weird and fantastic people who all come in and get really involved in on Mondays just helping out in the garden. So actually there's always, I would say, some kind of community element to growing almost every day at Hemban, just in all sorts of different shapes. And then a big thing we've taken on is kind of taking that a little bit beyond just growing. And so we kind of created this like community, kind of like a kind of cafe and cinema space and stuff like this. So we're really trying to kind of push out to create as much community conversation and engagement in the farm as possible. Yeah, but so basically the door is always open and there's pretty much always someone coming through it. Yeah. You're muted, Lowry.
I'm muted, thank you. Dwi am ddod â Liws i fewn i'r sgwrs rwan, lle tra mae pawb wrthi'n brysur yn tyfu ac yn hyrchu. A mae yna yn amlwg enghreifftiau gwych efo mae tyfu'n teg efo'i siop yn barod. Mae Matt a Hembant efo e-box llysiau wythnosol. Mae yna lot fawr mwy o dyfwyr yn yr ardal. A mae yna ffyrdd eitha diddorol, difyr, arloesol o ddosbarthu bwyd yn mynd ymlaen yn Dyffryn Ogwen. So chdi licio rhannu chydig bach am y mentra hynny efo ni?
Fyswn ni. Yng ngwaith i ydi efo Cadwyn Ogwen. Dwi'n gwybod os da chi wedi clywed am Cadwyn Ogwen, ond dwi eisiau chi gyd fynd ar-lein a sbio ar y siop sydd ar-lein efo cynnyrchwyr bwyd yr ardal i gyd yna, ac ella mwy. Dyn ni'n hapus i gwrdd unrhyw un sydd eisiau rhoi i cynnyrch o fewn 30 milltir i Dyffryn Ogwen. Dyna beth ni'n galw lleol. So mae'n eitha agored hynna rili, dydy. So, os ewch chi i www.cadwnogwen.cymru, gewch chi weld bod gennym ni fatha siop. Yn unio fel bob siop arall, ydych chi jyst yn adio bob dim ydych chi eisiau, fasged, teli, a wedyn dwi'n dod ar cynnyrch i chi mewn fan drydanol bob dydd Iau. So, dyn ni bod yn neud hynna stipyn rwan, ac yn gweld, chi dwi'n yn tyfu'r llysia, a mae gennau gwsmeriad un ochr a cynnyrchwyr bwyd yr ochr arall. So ni di'r gadwyn y chain sy'n rhwng y ddau. Ac dyn ni'n gobeithio bod ni'n hybu yn cynnyrchwyr ac yn cefnogi pawb yn lleol sy'n nid jyst yn tyfu llysia. Mae gennym ni bobl er enghraifft Cosyn Cymru sy'n gwneud caws yn lleol. Bob math o bethau gynnyn, yna'i rhestru nhw i chi os ydych chi licio. Mae gennau bwyd môr Menau sy'n dod â pysgod. Mae gennyn ni Derw Coffi sy'n gwneud coffi liqueurs lyflu. Tyfu eryri fatha microgreens gyn Sina. Fferm Pandi, Madarch Cymru, lle mae'r madarch anhygoel yma, a pwdwr umami enwog. Tyddyn Teg wrth gwrs, efo Franklin a Lucy a Alice. A crefftwyr fel Amser Al, Ink Pink. So mae yna sgôp yma i lot o bethau lleol i ffynnu. Ac wrth gwrs nath o gychwyn adeg y pandemig, fel oedd Matt yn sôn gyna, a thi'n just, wow, mae rhaid i ni gyd wneud rhywbeth. Mae gennym ni gynhyrchwyr sy'n eisiau cael ei bwyd i'r cwsmeriad, a cwsmeriad yn styc adre eisiau'r cynnyrch. So nathon ni ffurfio siop online, a nathon ni blesio lot o bobl yn danfon y cynnyrch yma cyn i'r archfarchnadoedd ffixo'r broblem o roi slots i bobl. So oedden ni ar y blaen adeg yn y pandemig yn mynd â cynnyrch lleol at gartrefi pobl oedd adra yn styc. A da ni dal i wneud bob wythnos, bob dydd Iau, da ni'n mynd o gwmpas Dyffryn Ogwen i gyd yn y fan drydanol. So da ni yn caru ein cynnyrchwyr, a da ni'n caru y llysia, ac mae yna lot o brofiad yn dod yn hyn. Da ni'n gweld, un peth dwi wedi dysgu ydy bod yna neb sy'n gweithio oriau hirach na'r cynnyrchwyr bwyd yma. Maen nhw just mor brysur. Os dwi isio iddyn nhw i wneud rhywbeth technegol, fel gosod rhywbeth ar-lein, dwi'n gorfod mynd i fewn i'r polytunnel neu i'r pridd a gwachod nhw yn plannu neu yn medu efo fy laptop yn dal i fyny efo nhw. Maen nhw just mor brysur. Mae Cari Cosyn yn aml tan hanner nos yn y lleithdy yn gwneud caws. So mae wedi bod yn brofiad anhygoel cael cwrdd â pobl sy'n mor weithgar, sy'n rhoi gymaint i fewn i'r gymuned, i ddyfodol yn cymunedau ni, yn cadw cynnyrchu bwyd yn lleol i fynd. Mae e jyst wedi bod yn brofiad anhygoel da.
Diolch o galon. Yn ogystal â Cadwyn Ogwen, mae gennych chi pantri pesta hefyd, eisiau sôn yn sydyn am hwnna o ran
Wel ia,
lleihau.
mae'n handi, mae gennym ni pantri pesta ar stryd fawr, so mae'n gyfle i ni leihau gwastraff bwyd, so dyn ni'n casglu gan yr archfarchnadoedd ac yn rhannu unrhyw beth maen nhw'n rhoi i ni am ddim yn y pantri. Dyn ni'n croesawu pobl sy'n be di'r gair, bod gennyn nhw lwyth y bres, mae croeso iddyn nhw ddod i helpu, a pobl wrth gwrs sy'n angen bwyd. Mae croesdoriad eang o bobl yn dod i helpu, am bod o'n fater mor bwysig i leihau wastraff bwyd. Ond hefyd mae gennym ni fanc bwyd, so mae bob dim yn plethu at ei gilydd, fel bod ni yn gallu gwneud siŵr bod pawb yn y gymuned efo bwyd. Mae'r cynhyrchwyr bwyd sydd ar Cadwyn Ogwen yn fynych yn rhoi beth sydd gen nhw'n ormod i ni, fel rhodd, i ni gael rhannu'n syth efo pobl sydd angen o. So mae'n, chwan ambell waith, dwi'n cael llwyth o courgettes a jyst na dwi'n gorfod ffeindio ffordd yn syth i rhannu hyn. A mae pobl wrthi'n coginio ac yn trio gwneud y bwyd yma unrhyw beth i gadw fo rhag mynd i wastraff.
Gwaith arbennig. Diolch ag Alan. Mae gennym ni gwpl o gwestiynau yn fan hyn. Cwestiwn cyntaf i Mike gan Corentin. Is the garden in the school, and how difficult is it to integrate the veggies into the canteen menu?
Yeah, good question. I've thought about that integration a lot. So yeah, but all the schools are on the school grounds. Sorry, all the gardens are on the school grounds. And I had this feeling when I first finished at Tyfu, the traineeship, and I really wanted to like have my own piece of land and do my own growing project. And there was a weird prepper urging me to be like, I need to have this for myself, for my food. And then, I don't know, in the bio, I wrote about this mindset of scarcity that we all have a bit of an urge to have our own little patch. And then I was like, oh, but then if it was there, and then maybe the schools could come and visit me there. So I've for a while wanted to integrate the growing and the educational aspects. But if everyone was coming to see me, then kids might only be visiting once every month or a couple of months, and there's not really that embedded aspect of it. So yeah, having them all on school site, super important, because yeah, it just filters into their awareness through osmosis. And then when I first went to have a discussion with the headmaster at the secondary, I was like, I didn't really know how everything works. So I was like, yeah, we'll start growing at scale, and I can grow enough food. We'll try and grow enough food to get in the canteens. And he kind of smiled and was like, I can't remember exactly what he said. It's something like £1.70 a head. Like the contractors that they're doing, it's quite a small amount of money per child that gets contracted out. And so obviously yeah, school budgets are kind of contracted and they're worked out at council or like at county scale. So yeah, how to integrate it with the canteen, I realized soon was like, oh, okay, that's quite challenging. But then this is where that whole getting them into the school kitchens for just cookery classes would be a lot more feasible, because you only need to grow like 30 leeks for a class, say. So you could and actually, so last week I had a meeting with the cookery teacher, and we went through each of the meals that they've got and when they do them, and I was like, some of them are seasonal, some of them aren't, so we're going to collaborate and match up how much of whatever vegetables she needs, so we can make like calcennin, leek and potato soup, and even if it's just like one of the vegetables in that meal was grown on the site, and the children can come down and harvest it themselves, and hopefully the children will also be, those children that are cooking will also be growing it. Although there's a nice thing about some of the kids that are growing it at the moment are really keen to share it. So like one of the kids actually suggested that we take it down to the pantry, or to the pantry Pesda. And I was like, that's a really nice idea. And then the other one was like, oh, we could take it to the market and sell it. And I was like, that's also a good idea. But yeah, so how to make it like either community oriented and sharing food, and it's being free for all, and it's like the nice gift generosity, gift economy vibes, or there's the entrepreneurial, we're making a business, because like that's also a really valuable thing to like food is hard to grow, and it's important that we value it both as a price and also as a as a livelihood, as a way of life for farmers and growers that are earning a good living, kind of thing. So all of those messages come across in various different ways.
Diolch yn fawr. Felly, yn credu araf iawn ydy broses o gael y llysiau wedi tyfu'n lleol I fewn I canteen yr ysgol. Yn clywed beth I ddeud am broses caffael rhanbarthol, caffael Cyngor Gwynedd, lle ar y funud mae o'n un contract, un cytundeb anferth, felly mae'n bosib yn y dyfodol torri cytundebau lawr, felly bod rhai o'r cytundebau yn gallu mynd I dyfwyr lleol, a bod rhan arall o'r cytundebau ysgolion yn mynd I rhai o'r darparwyr mwy, a bod yna broses ella o dros
a hefyd mae yna ysgolion yn Lloegr, dwi'n siŵr, sy'n cael kind of holl fferm kind of cysylltu efo'r ysgol, ond mae o fel kind of business llawn, so full its own business.
Mikey,
so mae yna model business yn barod I kind of copio.
Mae brawd Mikey efo fferm yn De Cymru, a dwi'n meddwl, oedd o di gwerthu courgettes i'r ysgol neu rhywbeth? Yn Blas Gwent.
Na fo, dros y haf, wyliau haf, oedd yn, tyfu pethau am kind of project bwydo plant, feeding children over the summer.
Gwych. A dwi'n gwybod mae Social Farms and Gardens, ffermydd a gerddi cymdeithasol yn edrych ar sut mae peth caffael mae'n gweithio a treialu bod hwb bwyd yn darparu llysiau I ambell ysgolion neu ysbytai. Maen nhw'n edrych I fewn I hynna ar y funud.
Gwych, gyda ni gwpl o gwestiynau eraill fan hyn. Felly croeso I unrhyw un sy'n teimlo bod gennyn nhw ateb I gynnig ateb. Cwestiwn gan Laura. Looking to get started growing our own food, wondering what is allowed and what isn't on agricultural land in terms of permitted developments, polytunnels, greenhouses, sheds. Any thoughts on what is and isn't allowed on agricultural land, what needs planning permissions, etc., or any signposting?
I don't think we know, do we? I don't really know. I do know that horticulture is not the same as agriculture. And I think it just depends where you are, doesn't it, really? I mean, I think within a farm context, I think you get away with growing vegetables on a patch of it. And I can't see anyone really having that problem. I think maybe in a space, in a closer to houses and things like this, maybe, or maybe in the middle of a massive open hillside, suddenly start popping up polytunnels, you've got an issue as well. But it's the kind of thing, I just think everybody's on board with it, everyone be on your side. I don't know. And Harad looks like she might have something more sensible to say.
No, I think you're broadly right, Matt. I think it is generally permitted. But it was Sarah Collick that told me that from Social Farms and Gardens again. So, yeah, if you want to know, Social Farms and Gardens will be the definitive source of advice on that question.
Wel, diolch yn fawr. Ni. Un cwestiwn arall gan Gabriella. How can individuals with land use it to benefit the community / local ecology in rural areas? Sut mae unigolion hefo tir yn ddefnyddio fo I elwa'r gymuned neu ecoleg lleol mewn ardaloedd gwledig? Ydy syniadau? Yna, Angharad, mae syniad dipyn fel beth ydych chi'n neud o ran meddiannu darnau bach o dir yma ag acw.
Yeah, I mean, lle mae na, os ydych chi'n ffeindio allan lle mae na galw bod pobl isio tyfu mwy a defnyddio mwy o dir i creu rhandiroedd neu gerddi cymunedol. Yeah, just holi ymysg y cymuned lle ti'n byw a wneud y cysylltiadau efo tyfwyr. Dwi'n gwybod mae Land Workers Alliance, dwi'n gwybod beth di enw'n Cymraeg, sori. Mae Land Workers Alliance ar hyn o bryd yn edrych, fatha maen nhw wedi trio wneud arolwg o pobl neu cymunedau sydd yn chwilio am tir i dyfu pethau, a pobl sydd efo tir ac isio cynnig o'r gymuned. So maen nhw'n trio roed y dau at ei gilydd ar y funud. So ella mae cysylltu Land Workers Alliance yn pwynt da i ddechrau hefyd.
Unrhyw un arall efo syniadau o ran be i wneud efo
Yeah,
tir?
I mean, I guess if you haven't got a few people that are like chomping at the bit to work your land, then you want something as low maintenance as possible, I guess. Because like intensive horticulture or any kind of agricultural project needs regular input. So I would suggest just like get a ton of wood chip mulch and plant a load of like perennials and fruit and nut trees, which will kind of establish over years. If you've just got kind of bare land, I mean, Matt's probably got way more of the knowledge on agroforestry or agroecology stuff, but yeah, I think chucking in a load of edible like chestnuts and hazels and walnuts, and that will obviously feed and fruit trees, of course, as well. That'll feed wildlife, and then in a few years' time, when it's like, oh, there's tons of food growing on in that field, and you can open it up to community use. Yeah, plant them and they will come.
Good.
Yeah, I love that, Mikey. Definitely.
Right.
Plant forests for the future. Food forests.
Just low maintenance, for sure.
You've reminded me as well, actually, I would add something that to benefit not just the community, but the more than human community and the ecology, it's really important to look at what's there already and what special things you've already got on your land that need to be protected for the future. And yeah, that's all I was going to add.
Real. Gobeithio bod hynna'n help, Gabriela. Eto, mae manylion cyswllt panelwyr i gyd heno yn y ddogfen a yn y pecyn gwybodaeth, os ydych chi'n meddwl am gwestiynau eto. Ar ôl ni orffen, ein hwyrach ymlaen. Un cwestiwn arall gan Corentan eto. Dwi'n credu i Matt oedd hwn nath ddod i fyny fel oedd Matt yn siarad yn gofyn, are you self-sufficient / auto-generating your electricity / energy?
No. For a long time, I was really obsessed by the self-sufficiency side of it. So I really wanted to come out here. And do you know what, actually, before we came here, there was a little window when we also ran a company installing solar panels. And installing just domestic solar panels to people's houses got a little bit boring. And I got a bit obsessed by installing like kind of off-grid systems for bigger systems for people who had money but really wanted to be off-grid. It's kind of like posh preppers, really, I used to kind of work for. But actually, in doing so, I kind of realized that you're much better off just sharing with your community. And so I think you kind of went there in the question about, are you self-sufficient? No, we almost produce as much energy as we use. And I would say, actually, when we came here, I got really obsessed by self-sufficiency through everything. And we got loads of jars and we put weird labels on and shoved them with stuff we were never going to eat that we were going to keep for years on shelves, and got really into that kind of side of it. And actually what I've realized is Now, and we have this whole team of people who are always coming through, and they always want to go a bit self-sufficient and a bit. Actually, what I've realised is you're much, much better off just sharing that abundance. And it was the same when I did the solar panels. You're much better off if you're producing more electric, rather than going through a big process to try and store it and keep it. Just give it to your neighbours and let someone else down the road boil their kettle on it. And the same with the food. If I've got too many courgettes, instead of spending all day chopping them up and sticking them in my freezer, why don't I just go down the road and give them to someone else? And I think that sharing is, and the community is the best way of absorbing any surplus, really. Yeah.
Fawr. Cwestiwn reit wahanol rwan gan Rob Owen. Dwi am roi hwn i Franklin. Well, bosib with Franklin efo syniadau. I think you might have a few ideas on this. What can the Welsh Government do to support locally grown food for everyone? Any thoughts?
That is a big, very big question, because at the moment, I think we've got 0.1% of the land area of Wales is committed to growing fruit and vegetables, and almost all of that is some larger growers down in South Wales. And so the Welsh Government is very well aware that in terms of coming anywhere near self-sufficiency for fruit and vegetables, that Wales has a long way to go. And yet, getting the message through as to what they need to do in order to really support the expansion of vegetable growing in Wales is something that it's a hard slog. So one of the achievements recently was that there's always been some grant support for farmers, but it's always been for livestock, has been for many years. And then they launched a grant fund, which was really of no good to anybody working on a small scale. And they made so you had to fill in a very complicated form process in order to access the grant right in the middle of the growing season. So they've got a lot of waking up to do if they really want to make changes. But a lot of it is to do with being able to help existing farmers to change what they're doing, and to also to make it easier for new entrants to access that. And they've got a lot to do if they want to begin to make any progress. It's not very encouraging, but I think there's some, they recognize that schools and hospitals and so on should be accessing more locally grown produce, but in terms of putting any money to making it happen, we've yet to see it.
On public procurement, green public procurement, I've read a few bits about how that can be leveraged, and I don't know where it's got to. Have you dipped into the new agricultural bill at all, and gleaned anything from that bit of a shift?
I haven't seen anything which makes me think, oh yes, the ground's changing, things are going to happen.
I saw some stuff about tree planting as a mandate,
but there's no money to make it happen. So you've got some things within the agricultural bill which will be helpful, but it's not going to be game changing. That's where we are.
I think they find it very hard to know how to do it, actually, which I know sounds a bit daft, but I think they do. I do quite a lot of talking to people, try to make decisions on how we do stuff. And like the sustainable farming scheme is actually an incredibly positive ambitious piece of kind of forward-thinking document, and I think it could have potentially, like, taken on the right end of its ambition, it's got huge potential to radically change our landscapes and probably to change the way we farm to some extent. And there's lots of funding in there. There is funding in there for agroforestry. There is funding in there for creating enriched habitats. I think, like Franklin said, there's so little horticulture in Wales. I think they find it almost impossible to know how to encourage it. They do fund Tyfu Cymru, which I think are not bad. And like Frank said, they're a little bit guided towards bigger growers. I would say there is ambition, like actually they were really surprised, like that funding that Franklin described when they came out with like funding for new growers and funding for horticultural projects. I think they were really disappointed that no one took it up. And like Franklin said, they just made it really complicated. And you know, like Lucinda says, like basically, unless you go into the polytunnel and ask them what they're doing, then they're just not, you know, the growers that exist are quite overrun. And I think getting into the heart of knowing what does exist, if you're not already in that space, is also probably really complicated. So I'd say there's ambition there. They just need their hand holding a little bit more.
It's a really interesting point to think of, like every farmer needs an administrator or a secretary that can do the grant applications, do the sifting through, because those skill sets are so different. And it's like kind of bizarre that any other business would delegate different jobs for different people. And the idea that a farmer would ever be able to find time to do the growing and the distributing and the planning and then also apply for grants and that stuff is quite.
Yeah, and I think actually it's a space, because actually if you look at a conventional livestock farmer filling in a form for RPW, actually you could go and talk to your whatever NFU rep or whatever, like the farmer unions that represent bigger landholders do have that provision for people. And actually, I mean, there's LWA, and I just don't think that's just not quite in their space, and they're not really operating in that. Maybe they probably wouldn't be that hard for them, but yeah, I'd like you to say, I just don't think the two sides just haven't met each other yet properly.
More civil servants in polytunnels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just curious, Matt and Franklin, did you guys feed into the Sustainable Farming Scheme consultations at all? Well, I know they're still doing more, but yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah, I have quite a lot. We had the team come to Hembant and spend a day with us, going over it and stuff like that. We've been quite involved. Yeah, but to be honest, not much on the horticulture side. They get more excited by the fact that we're one of the few people who've actually put trees in the middle of our fields, and that's what's kind of excited that. And you know, even when they come round the horticulture side, they go, "Oh, that's interesting," but it's just a different space to what they used to.
Well, I think you guys are paving the way for more people to be able to do the same anyway.
Wel, mae yna bendant deimlad bod ni yng nghanol rhyw fath o lygad y storm ar hyn o bryd. Mae'n gyfnod eitha cythryblus, mae lot fawr o newid, a di newid ddim yn gallu dod ddigon sydyn. Gobeithio wrth gario ymlaen i ddod at ein gilydd fel hyn, cario ymlaen i gael y sgyrsiau yma, rhannu profiadau, rhannu rhwystredigaethau. Bydd y negeseuon yma yn llifo allan ac yn cyrraedd y clustiau cywir. A fydd pethau lot fawr iawn yn haws i dyfwyr newydd. Dwi'n gobeithio bod yna lot fawr o dyfwyr newydd. Mae'n swnio felly bod yna dipyn o dyfwyr parod neu rhai sydd yn paratoi ar gyfer dod yn dyfwyr bwyd ymysg yn cynulleidfa ni heno. Mae gennym ni un cwestiwn arall gan Laura, cwestiwn ymarferol, ynglyn â no dig versus digging. What are people doing and what would you recommend for newbies? Dwi'n aml bod eitha lot o no dig yn y stafell yma ar y
No
funud?
dig, just don't dig. Just don't.
No dig.
I'm not saying you don't want some potatoes or some yacons or a few weird stuff that grow underground that you need to dig up. And we're a bit of a cheat in that we do buy in some of our field crops. Not all of them, but a little bit of them. So we basically buy in potatoes.
Would you like to offer us the science bit, Matt?
Yeah, I would. So look, so what humans need to do is to copy nature. What does nature do? Nature basically never has bare soil. So if you've got soil that's covered over with a mulch, with a compost, with whatever it would be in nature, leaf litter, it's a bit like kind of scratching off that layer of skin. And so as soon as you do that, you create damage. And when you create damage, you break up all the soil food web. So there's a huge big web of soil, like a big web of different things going on in the soil that's all there, all functioning really well. And it's a bit like me coming and going, oh, look, this house, if I turn it over, I've got a nice clean surface to work on, but I've just turned the whole house upside down. And the other thing is, in that soil, there's millions of seeds, and they're weed seeds, and their job is to come in and fix stuff and repair stuff. And the moment you break open that soil, you give them light, you give them air, and all their cues go, oh, look, we've got a job to do, we've got to fix, we've got to cover this soil over. And so that's as soon as what they start to do. So if you just keep them under a nice little duvet, they're never going to wake up. All the soil can just get on with doing what it's supposed to do, and your life's much easier. I'm not biased.
The only snag is you do need quite a lot of compost to start out, to especially if you're covering grass. So when we started out, I was getting like between 5 and 20 ton deliveries of compost from the Penteskian, the municipal compost, which is great. But that also meant moving 20 tons from a massive heap and spread it out. And if you've got an army of teenage boys who have energy to wheelbarrow, it's also great. But yeah, there's a labor intensive aspect to it. You need a whole load of cardboard to line it out as well, which is fine. You can do that, but then you've got to take all the tape off and do all that and or you can do it with big rolls. So yeah, there's work involved getting established, but once it's up, then it's infinitely better than weeding endlessly, I would say.
Syniad da dod yn gyfeillgar hefo'ch torwyr coed lleol hefyd. Sgyn nhw llond cefn tryc o chippings coed. Mae'n gallu gollwng nhw i ffwrdd I chi. Unrhyw un arall efo sylwadau ar dig, no dig, Franklin?
Well, I think one thought, when you're going to a more field crop level, that you can have minimal digging. So Matt was saying how the disturbance that you make when you cultivate, how disruptive it is. But if you can keep any cultivation that you do just to being the top few inches, then you've roughly got you're roughly looking at you've got about 10 centimeters deep is the most active area. So if you can just if you want to do some damage to cultivate the surface, if you can keep it really, really shallow, and then in between crops, make sure that you put down green manure crops. So again, you're not leaving it bare, and you can do that without having to cover the ground with compost, which is, as Mikey is saying, it's a lot of work, a lot of compost, or a lot of wood chip.
And that's also, yeah, so the min till, which is, yeah, kind of minimal disturbance, is quite different to the no till at scale, which like people may be aware of, but essentially it's controlling weeds by spraying glyphosate, herbicides. So there's like no till rather than like no dig gardening. You've got no till at large scale, and yeah, that often like fixing one problem has a trade-off in another way if we're not savvy about how we control weeds.
Mae'r amser yn prysur hedfan I ffwrdd. Mae gennym ni rhyw 10 munud ar ôl. Mae yna sylwad yn fan hyn gan Carol Henry. The Good Food Nation Bill was just put through in Scotland. An organisation called the Scottish Food Coalition guided a lot of the process. I know of organisations like Nourish and Sustain in Scotland and England. I'm not sure of a similar organisation in Wales. Then in the Sustainable Food Trust, that's yn debyg.
Yeah, Sustainable Food Trust are brilliant. They've got a great podcast as well. I really like listening to their stuff. I was just looking at, I was following the food Manifesto Bwyd for a while, but maybe they're not as active as they were. But they had some good stuff.
Yeah. I would say one difference in Wales is we don't like Sustainable Food Trust are amazing, but they're a UK-wide organisation really, and they're not necessarily Wales. I mean, although Patrick lives in the middle of Wales, they're not really very Wales focused. Wales is very different in that we've got a lot of money goes from government into advisory bodies and stuff like that. So actually there are, and I'm not saying they're doing the same thing, but actually there's Farming Connect and there's Tyfu Cymru, and actually they are trying to do, it's not the same, but I wonder if it's kind of slightly partly kind of taken that space.
Diolch, Matt. Dwi'n meddwl bosib bod hwn yn un I orffen arno fo. What veg should a beginner grower start with? It's ideally from now. What can a beginner be sticking in the soil right now?
So right now, it's a good time to plant garlic, and if you're growing over the winter, you could chuck some broad beans in the ground, which will also, that'll be tickling away on your nitrogen fixing. So I accidentally left a load of broad beans and they've just all sprung up. So I'm like, oh, that's handy. That's a cover crop, accidental cover crop. But yeah, to start now, that would be good. And then kids always love pulling up carrots. So I would say that's one of the fun ones, just because they're colourful and you can munch them straight away.
Mae yna un cwestiwn ola di dod fewn yn sydyn a mae'n un da, os yn ei licio cynnwys rhain yn y pecyn gwybodaeth, so fedrwn ni ychwanegu. Do you have any other podcast recommendations? O ran tyfu bwyd.
Ooh, many. Yes, the Sustainable Food Trust mentioned just. One that it's not always growing based, but she does do some really good stuff around food, but also quite like the broader societal stuff. It's called Accidental Gods, and I think she did economics at Schumacher College, and then accidentally kind of got into growing. She's Amanda Scott. She's got a really broad background, and she weaves in the social aspects and the food and permaculture and lots of really cool different threads. Accidental Gods.
That sounds good. There's the No-Till Market Garden. That's a good podcast. There are a few kind of market garden podcasts. I think I am probably listening to stuff that's a bit more kind of broader brush and a bit more kind of food systems and agricultural systems. But that's not a bad one.
Richard,
Farmerama, good one, Carol.
Brilliant, Farmerama. And also, any interviews with Richard Perkins are great. He's been on quite a few podcasts, and well worth listening to for some good philosophy of food.
Dwi'n siŵr os dyn nhw wedi gwneud I podcast eto, ond mae cynnwys Adam yn yr Ardd wastad yn ddifyr iawn, os di pobl isio chydig bach o ysbrydoliaeth garddio yn y Gymraeg. A garddio mwy hefyd, bod nhw wedi cychwyn yn eitha garddwriaethol o ran planhigion a bloda. Maen nhw weld yn agor I fyny dipyn mwy rwan I dyfu bwydydd. Felly, argymhellion gret fyna. Mae pawb yn fod yn brysur yn gwrando. Os oes gennych chi fwy, anfonwch yn ata fi. Dwi'n mynd i gadw i ychwanegu pethau'r pecyn gwybodaeth yma. A mi fydd ar gwefan GwyrddNi yn yr wythnos neu ddwy nesaf. Os da chi ddim yn gyfarwydd efo gwefan GwyrddNi, da ni'n ychwanegu ato fo hyd. Mae gennym ni recordiadau o'r holl siaradwyr sydd wedi bod yn cynulliadau ni, lle pynciau o bob math o sydd wedi sefydlu menter gymdeithasol, yn eu cymunedol, bysgota, cael sgyrsiau gan ffermwyr hefyd, Matt wedi bod efo ni. Felly ie, ewch draw i wefan GwyrddNi, edrychwch trwy'r adnoddau sydd yna, cofrestrwch ar gyfer ein sgyrsiau nesaf ni, os da chi heb wneud yn barod, ystyn nhw o ddiddordeb i chi. Allan ni gloi, yn gofyn i bawb yn sydyn be nesaf, be da chi'n edrych ymlaen iddo fo. Liws, gyda chi rhywbeth difyr yn dod i fyny draw fe Cadwyn Ogwen, Partneriaeth Ogwen?
Gen ni lot o bethau, gymaint o bethau fydra i'n meddwl reit off top y men wan. Dwi jyst yn edrych ymlaen i y systemau bwyd lleol yn cryfhau chydig bach ar y tro. A fedrwn ni wneud hyn drwy gefnogi'n gilydd ar rhannu'n gwybodaeth, ar rhannu beth sy'n gweithio a beth sy'n ddim yn gweithio. A mae'r cyswllt yma'n bwysig yn bendant.
Franklin, what's next? What are you looking forward to?
So many things. So, I mean, one of the things we're working on is to keep expanding how much we're growing. So we're hoping to go over in the next year or so, to go over 200 boxes. And with part of that, we're going to be putting in a new polytunnel, and we've got improvements to our irrigation scheme. We've just been resurfacing a big chunk of our driveway so that people don't have to ruin their cars getting down there, coming down to see us. And but one of the other big things we're going to be doing starting in the spring is we're going to be launching a community share offer. And so what we'd really like to do is to make so that the sort of underlying ownership of the farm is with the community, and that so it will remain a vegetable growing farm for as long as everybody who's invested in it agrees that it should be. If we have hundreds and hundreds of people, I don't think anyone will ever get agreement that it should suddenly become something else. So that's some of our projects.
Yes, ydyn iawn. Matt? Beth sy'n dod i fyny? What are you looking forward to?
I don't know. We also need to sort out our driveway, Franklin, because that's a bit of an exhaust eater at the moment. But no, we're busy putting this big community orchards. We got a big grant of Social Farms and Gardens to do that. So we're putting in kind of like a lakeside community orchard, which is good. And we're doing lots of stuff with Bangor University coming down and sending all their students down to help with that. We are, we're trying to create more of a space for kind of people. Actually, we're kind of launching half that hemband. So I kind of feel like we've done, the farm is up and running, and it's now time to create as much conversation and space for that as possible. And that's one of the big things we're kind of launching. And that's it. We're just gonna, do you know what, actually our big plan at the moment is we've got all these different projects that we're going on with, and they're all brilliant, but none of them are perfect. And so our plan in the next 6 months a year is to make them incredible, really kind of dial them into being like absolutely just singing. That's what my project is. Yeah.
Chorus of angels above Glennog Fawr. Mike? Edrych ymlaen i.
Yes, edrych ymlaen i llawer. Looking forward to a lot of things. So we've got, on Sunday, we've got a really nice little thing planned just in the woods, a kind of Halloween end of like touching base with some of the other aspects of Halloween, the the end of the growing season, we're going to all get together and have soup and carve pumpkins, and everyone's welcome to that. It's an open event. If you go on Facebook on the GwyrddNi website, GwyrddNi Facebook page, you'll see the event Calan Gaeaf and Acoed, Halloween in the Woods. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we're going to also be then collecting tree seeds for starting up a tree nursery. So one of the other aspects of the food growing stuff is we're getting more into tree planting. So we're going to plant a load of seeds, and then after half term, I'm looking forward to half term and a week off. And then after half term, we're going to be planting more trees at the school, and then I'm looking forward to Christmas off.
Hyfryd.
And very quickly, and then I'm not looking forward to spring yet because I'm tired, but by the time I've had that month off, I will be looking forward to spring, and I will also be looking for people to help with, so basically 2 of the schools have said if there's more people to help with paid freelance gardening work. So this is a small shout out to anyone who is confident working with children and reasonable Welsh. Like my Welsh is a kind of an intermediate learner, so they're very understanding about that. But yeah, if anyone's interested in this kind of work, and I'm sure Angharad maybe has a similar experience of there's more demand in schools than there are people to deliver it. So come and get in touch with us, and we can give you some training and pay nice paid work.
Diolch yn fawr, bob lwc, cael pobl I fewn.
Diolch.
Angharad, ti eisiau cynnig rhywbeth yn sydyn iawn? Da ni wedi dod I ben yr amser.
Just sydyn iawn, cos dwi'n methu containio fy hyn. Dwi mor edrych ymlaen I sefydlu gerddi cymunedol newydd yn pentrefi yn Plwyf Llanddeniolen. So, tebyg I maic I unrhyw un sy'n eisiau joinio fewn, dewch. A mae yna mwy o galw yn yr ysgolion lleol na fedra I copio efo hefyd. Really edrych ymlaen, da ni wedi dechrau wneud pethau coginio I helpu pobl, inspirio nhw be I wneud efo'r veg. So ni'n really licio wneud mwy o hynna. Oeddwn ni'n gweithio efo Tyddyn Teg I wneud hynna. A just helpu hybu mwy o partneriaethau bach, fel a tyfu pethau gwahanol, dim just bwyd. Textilia sef grŵp lleol yn Bethel, maen nhw wedi arbrofi yn tyfu llinyn growing flax at Tyddyn Teg this year, and that was a successful experiment. It's nice to see the diversity of things being grown. And also like to get into a bit of woodland management in Bryn Arfel and create an outdoor education space and get our heads together about what we can do about outdoor education for young people and lots more.
Gwych. Waw. A mae hyn just canran bychan bach iawn o'r tyfwyr anhygoel sydd gennym ni yn Eryri. Mae'n, gobeithio bod pawb arall yn teimlo rhain gymaint o gynhesrwydd calon a dwi'n ei deimlo o rand ar bob dim sy'n ymlaen a'r cyfeiriad mae'n cymunedau ni'n mynd. Dych chi gyd yn hysbysebion gwych I pa mor llesol ydy tyfu, cael eich dwylo yn y pridd. Mae'n dda i'r enaid, swn i'n dweud, a pob lwc I bawb sydd yma, sydd wrthi'n tyfu, neu ar fi'n dechrau tyfu. Cadwch mewn cysylltiad. Gadwch I mi wybod os ydych chi wedi mwynhau ar Facebook neu cyfryngau cymdeithasol. Cysylltwch efo fi os gennych chi fwy o links, pethau ni gynnwys ar gwefan GwyrddNi I gael deud wrth pawb yn y byd beth sy'n mynd ymlaen. Yna fo, sgwrs GwyrddNi rhif 1 drosodd. Diolch yn fawr I pawb, a nos da.